The metal door slid open with a sharp hiss. Commander Lisa Martinez stepped into the cold interrogation room, her boots clicking against the polished floor. Behind her, Lieutenant Jake Morrison carried a datapad and 2 cups of coffee. The room was small and white, with bright lights that made everything look harsh and clean. Out in the center sat something that looked like a giant insect. The creature was tall, maybe 7 feet, with long arms and legs that bent in strange ways. Its body was covered in a dark shell that reflected the lights like armor. 6 compound eyes dotted its narrow head, and sharp mandibles clicked together as it breathed. This was Zekthara, a warrior of the Vrex Empire, and he was their prisoner. Martinez pulled out a chair and sat down across from the alien. She had been questioning prisoners for 15 years, but this was her first Vrex. The creature's eyes followed her every move, and she could hear a low clicking sound coming from its throat. Morrison stood by the door, ready to call for help. "If needed, you know why you're here," Martinez said. Her voice was calm but firm. "We want to understand what happened on Kepler 442b. Zekthara's antennae twitched. The thin stalks on his head moved like they were testing the air. He opened his mouth and spoke in perfect English, though his voice sounded like gravel being crushed. "I will tell you nothing, human. Your kind is weak. You cannot understand true war." Martinez leaned back in her chair. She had expected this. Every alien prisoner started the same way, full of pride and anger, but they all talked eventually. The Vrex thought they were different, but she had ways of making them speak. "Your brothers have been very helpful," she said. 3 other Vrex warriors have already told us about the battles on Kepler 442b. They told us how your forces retreated, how your great warships fled from our small colony ships. The clicking sound from Zekthara's throat grew louder. His mandibles opened and closed rapidly. Martinez knew she had hit something important. The Vrex were proud creatures, and the idea that others had talked would anger him. "Lies," Zekthara hissed. "No Vrex would speak to human scum. We are the hunters. You are the prey. This is the way of the universe," Martinez smiled. She had heard this before from other alien species. They all thought humans were weak because they looked soft. No claws, no fangs, no natural armor. But they were wrong, and she was about to show him why. "The way of the universe?" she asked. "Is that why your empire is pulling back from human space? Is that why your fleets run when they see our ships? Some hunters you are." Zekthara's whole body tensed. His shell made a grinding sound as he shifted in his chair. The alien was getting angry, which was exactly what Martinez wanted. Angry prisoners made mistakes. "You know nothing of war," he said. "Your species has existed for what, 200,000 years? The Vrex have conquered the galaxy for millions of years. We have destroyed species that were older and stronger than you will ever be." Martinez nodded. "Yes, we know about your conquests. 47 species completely wiped out. Dozens more turned into slaves. Very impressive." She paused and looked directly at his compound eyes, but none of them were human. The room fell silent, except for the hum of the air system. Zekthara stared at her, his antennae moving slowly. Martinez could see him thinking, trying to decide what to say next. "Your species fought us for 3 years," she continued. 3 years of victories for the mighty Vrex Empire. "And now you're here, in our prison, while your fleets hide behind your borders. What changed?" Zekthara's mandibles clicked once, very loud. Then he spoke in a voice so quiet they could barely hear him. "You want to know what changed? You want to know why the greatest empire in the galaxy fears a species of hairless apes?" Martinez leaned forward. This was it. This was the moment when prisoners always broke. "Yes, tell me." The alien was quiet for a long time. His eyes moved from Martinez. to Morrison and back again. Finally, he spoke. I was there when it started. On New Haven, I saw your kind for the first time. I thought it would be easy. We all did. And we were wrong. So very wrong. Zekthara's voice carried something Martinez had never heard. From an alien before. Fear. Real, deep fear. Your kind does not fight like prey. You do not fight like predators either. You fight like something else. Something worse. Martinez exchanged a look with Morrison. The lieutenant was writing everything down, but she could see the confusion in his eyes. This was not what they had expected. What do you mean? She asked. Zekthara's antennae drooped. His proud posture began to crumble. I will tell you about New Haven, about the first time we met your kind in battle. But you must understand, human. When I am done, you will know why every Rex warrior wakes up screaming. You will know why mothers tell their younglings stories about the terror that comes from the third planet of a yellow star. Martinez sat back and waited. She had what she wanted. The alien would talk now, but something in his voice made her skin crawl. What had happened on New Haven that could scare a creature like this? Begin, she said. Zekthara closed his compound eyes and began to speak. His words would haunt her dreams for years to come. Zekthara's compound eyes stared at nothing as he began his story. His voice was steady, but Martinez could see his claws digging into the metal table. The alien was remembering something that hurt him deeply. New Haven was supposed to be easy, he said. Just another human colony on the edge of your space. Our scouts told us there were maybe 50,000 humans there. Farmers, miners, families with children. Soft creatures who had never seen real war. Martinez listened without speaking. She knew about New Haven. The colony had been lost 3 years ago when the Vrex first attacked human space. But the official reports said very little about what actually happened there. Hive General Kixandra led our fleet, Zekthara continued. 20 warships, each one bigger than your largest vessels. We had weapons that could crack planets and shields, that could stop anything you humans had built. The general was old, even for a Vrex. She had conquered 17 different species. New Haven was going to be our 18th. The alien paused and made a sound like grinding metal. Martinez realized he was laughing, but it was not a happy sound. We came out of jump space right above your little world. Beautiful blue and green, with white clouds. Just like the home worlds of so many species we had destroyed. The general ordered the bombardment to begin. Not to kill everyone, you understand. Just to show you what we could do. To make you afraid. Zekthara's antennae twitched as he remembered. We hit your largest city first. A place called Haven Falls. The plasma cannons turned 10 city blocks into glass. And we hit your spaceport. Your communication towers. Your power plants. Everything that made your colony work. Martinez felt sick. She had seen the reports from the survivors. Haven Falls had been home to 15,000 people. Most of them had died in the first few minutes of the attack. Then we waited, Zekthara said. This is how it always worked. We would show our power, and the prey would surrender. They would kneel and beg for mercy. Some species took hours. Some took days. But they all broke eventually. But not humans, Martinez said quietly. No, not humans. The alien's voice grew softer. We waited for 3 days. Our sensors showed thousands of your people were still alive. But no surrender came. No white flags. No messages begging for peace. Instead, we started picking up radio signals from all over the planet. Your people were talking to each other, organizing, planning. Zekthara's claws scraped against the table. The general was confused. This had never happened before. She sent down scout ships to see what was happening. That was when we met Captain Ryan Brooks. Martinez knew that name. Brooks had been the senior Marine officer on New Haven. He had died in the fighting, but the stories about him had spread throughout human space. Brooks was in command of maybe 200 Marines, Zekthara said. Your military people. But he also had help from someone else. A human female named Amy Foster. She was not a soldier. She was what you call a mayor. A leader of civilians. Together, they had done something impossible. The alien stopped talking and stared at Martinez. His compound eyes seemed to be looking through her, seeing something far away. What did they do? Martinez asked. They turned farmers into warriors. They gave mining tools to children and told them how to kill Vrex. They took machines that were meant to plant seeds and turned them into weapons of war. In 3 days, they had created an army from nothing. Zekthara's voice grew stronger as he continued. Our scouts landed expecting to find broken, frightened prey. Instead, they found humans who had dug tunnels under their fields. Humans who had turned their homes into fortresses. Humans who had learned to make bombs from fertilizer and fuel. Martinez felt a chill run down her spine. She had heard stories like this from other human colonies that had been attacked. But hearing it from the alien's perspective made it feel different. More real. The first scout ship landed in what used to be a wheat field, Zekthara said. 20 of my brothers got out, expecting to find humans hiding in the ruins. Instead, they found mines buried in the ground. Explosives that tore through their armor like paper. Half the landing party died before they took 10 steps. The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly. Martinez realized he was agitated, reliving the memory. But that was not the worst part, Zekthara continued. The worst part was what happened next. The humans came out of their hiding places, not to surrender, not to run. They came out to fight. Martinez leaned forward. What do you mean? I mean, they attacked us. 50 humans with farming tools and homemade weapons attacked 50 Vrex warriors with military gear and centuries of training. They should have been slaughtered. Instead, they fought like demons. Zekthara's eyes focused on Martinez again. Do you know what I saw that day? I saw a human child, no more than 12 years old, run straight at a Vrex war machine. She was carrying a bag full of explosives. She knew she would die. We all knew she would die. But she ran anyway, screaming your human war cries. The alien's voice dropped to a whisper. The explosion destroyed the war machine and killed 3 of my brothers. But before she died, the child looked right at me. She was not afraid. She was not sad. She was angry. Angry that we had come to her world. Angry that we had hurt her people. Martinez felt tears in her eyes. She had heard about the child. Her name was Lucy Chun. She had been in the 6th grade at New Haven Elementary School. That was when I first understood, Zekthara said. Your species does not fight to win. You fight to hurt us. Even when you cannot win, you make sure that victory costs us more than we want to pay. The alien was quiet for a long moment. Then he looked up at Martinez with what might have been respect. The battle for New Haven lasted 18 days. In the end, we took the planet. But it cost us 12,000 warriors and 6 warships. For a farming colony that should have surrendered in hours. Zekthara's antennae drooped. The general was demoted. The high command was furious. They could not understand how prey could fight like predators. Martinez wiped her eyes. But you learned, didn't you? You learned that humans are not prey. Yes, Zekthara said. We learned. But by then, it was too late. The word had spread throughout your space. Every human colony knew what had happened on New Haven. They all started preparing for war. They all started learning how to turn their weakness into our nightmare. The alien looked directly at Martinez. Your species has a saying. Remember the Alamo? After New Haven, every human in the galaxy was saying something else. Remember Lucy Chun, and we knew our war was lost before it truly began. Martinez poured herself more coffee. Her hands were shaking slightly after hearing about New Haven, but she needed to know more. Zekthara sat quietly, his compound eyes watching her every move. The alien seemed tired, as if telling these stories was draining his strength. New Haven was just the beginning, she said. What happened next? Zekthara's antennae drooped lower. The High Command was angry after New Haven. They said we had been too soft, too careful. They wanted to show your species what real war looked like. So they chose a target that would break your spirit once and for all. The alien's claws scraped the table again. Titan Station, your mining facility around the gas giant Saturn. It was far from any help, surrounded by empty space. Only 200 humans lived there, and they were not soldiers. They were engineers, miners, scientists. The perfect target to teach your species a lesson. Martinez knew about Titan Station. It had been one of the most important mining operations in human space, pulling rare metals from Saturn's moons. The facility had been destroyed in the war, but the official reports were classified. She had never known the details. Fleet Commander Vorthak led the attack, Zekthara continued. He was young for a Rex commander, eager to prove himself after the embarrassment of New Haven. He brought 50 warships and 10,000 warriors. Enough to conquer a small planet. The alien paused and made that grinding sound again. The commander was so confident. He surrounded your station with his fleet and cut off all your communications. No messages could get in or out. No supply. Ships could reach you. He thought he would starve you out like trapped animals. Martinez leaned forward, but it didn't work. No, it did not work. Zekthara's voice grew quieter. Your people on Titan Station were led by 3 humans. Staff Sergeant Kelly Davis, Engineer Pete Collins, and Dr. Sam Rodriguez. Davis was the only real soldier among them. The others were civilians who had never held weapons before the war started. The alien's compound eyes seemed to dim as he remembered. Commander Vorthak sent messages to the station. He promised quick death if you surrendered. He promised slow torture if you did not. He played recordings of other species, begging for mercy before they died. This always worked before. Martinez could imagine the scene. 200 humans trapped in a metal box, surrounded by enemies, with no hope of rescue. Any sane species would have given up. Staff Sergeant Davis sent back a message, Zekthara said. Just 5 words in your human language. Come and take it, Bugs. Then she cut the communication link. The alien shuddered, his whole body trembling. The commander was furious. He ordered an immediate assault. 5,000 warriors in assault. Pods hitting the station from all sides. It should have been over in minutes. Martinez waited. She could see that Zekthara was struggling with this memory more than the others. I was in the first wave, the alien said. My pod cut through the station's outer hull like it was made of paper. I expected to find humans cowering in their compartments, waiting to die. Instead, I found something else. The alien's antennae twitched rapidly. The humans had turned their own home into a death trap. Every corridor had been mined with explosives. Every room had been turned into a killing ground. They had spent weeks preparing for our attack, learning every pipe, every wire, every hiding place in their station. Martinez felt cold. They were ready for you. More than ready. They were hunting us. Zekthara's voice was barely above a whisper. Engineer Collins had rigged the life support systems to create poisonous gas in certain sections. He could turn any room into a gas chamber with the push of a button. Dr. Rodriguez had turned the medical bay into a bomb factory using surgical supplies to make weapons. The alien stopped talking and stared at his claws. Martinez could see they were shaking. "What about Davis?" she asked. "Staff Sergeant Davis was the worst of all," Zekthara said. "She moved through the station like a ghost. She knew every vent, every maintenance shaft, every place where a human could hide. She would appear behind us, kill 2 or 3 warriors, and vanish before we could react." The alien's mandibles clicked rapidly. "We had night vision. We had enhanced hearing. We had sensors that could detect heartbeats from 50 meters away. None of it mattered. The humans moved through their own territory, like they were part of the station itself." Martinez could picture it. The Vrex, built for open warfare, trapped in narrow corridors where their size and strength meant nothing, fighting enemies who knew every inch of the battleground. "The assault lasted 12 hours, Zekthara continued. 12 hours of hunting humans through a maze of metal and death. Every room we took cost us warriors. Every corridor was a trap. By the end, we had lost 3,000 soldiers just to control half the station." The alien looked up at Martinez. "That was when Commander Vorthek made his mistake. He ordered us to take the reactor core. He thought if we controlled the power, we could force the remaining humans to surrender." Martinez felt her stomach drop. She had a feeling she knew what was coming next. "Staff Sergeant Davis was waiting for us in the reactor chamber," Zekthara sighed. She was alone, standing next to the main control panel. She had been wounded. Her left arm was broken, and she was bleeding from a dozen cuts. But she was smiling. The alien's voice cracked. She spoke to us as we entered the chamber. She said, "You want our home? You can have it, but you'll have to take it in pieces." Then she started pressing buttons on the control panel. Martinez closed her eyes. She could imagine the scene perfectly. A wounded human soldier, surrounded by alien enemies, making one last choice. "Engineer Collins had rigged the reactor to overload," Zekthara said. "Dr. Rodriguez had filled the chamber with explosives. Staff Sergeant Davis had the trigger." She looked right at me and said, "See you in hell, Bug." Then she pressed the final button. The alien was quiet for a long moment. Martinez could hear her own heartbeat in the silence. "I barely escaped," Zekthara whispered. "My pod launched just as the station exploded. The blast was so bright, it lit up Saturn like a second sun. Titan Station, the humans, and 3,000 of my brothers died in that explosion." But that was not the worst part. Martinez opened her eyes. What was the worst part? Zekthara looked at her with something that might have been respect. The worst part was that Staff Sergeant Davis had a choice. She could have surrendered. She could have tried to escape. She could have hidden and hoped we would leave. Instead, she chose to turn her own death into a weapon. The alien's compound eyes fixed on Martinez. "Your species does not just fight to win. You fight to make sure that winning costs us everything. Even when you lose, you make sure we lose more." Martinez stared at the alien. She was beginning to understand why the Vrex were so afraid of humans. It wasn't about strength or weapons or technology. It was about something deeper. Something that made humans willing to turn their own deaths into victory. "The commander survived," Zekthara said. "But he was never the same. He requested transfer to the Outer Rim, as far from human space as possible. He said he never wanted to fight your species again." The alien leaned back in his chair. That was when the High Command began to realize the truth. Humans are not prey. Humans are not predators. Humans are something else entirely. Something that makes death itself. Afraid. Martinez rubbed her temples. The stories Zekthara was telling were getting harder to hear. She had known that humans fought fiercely in the war, but she had never understood the effect it had on their enemies. The alien across from her looked broken, like a warrior who had seen too much. After Titan Station, Things changed, she said. The war shifted. What happened next? Zekthara's antennae moved slowly. The High Command was worried. 2 major defeats in a row had never happened before. They decided to bring in specialists, experts in breaking the will of prey species. They wanted to learn how to make humans afraid. The aliens' compound eyes focused on Martinez. That was when we first encountered your psychological warfare. Commander Alex Thompson and Captain Nina Wells. They were not like your other warriors. They did not carry guns or bombs. They carried something much more dangerous. Martinez knew those names. Thompson had been head of psychological operations for the Third Fleet. Wells had been his specialist in alien psychology. Both had been decorated heroes, though their methods had been controversial even among humans. What did they carry? Martinez asked. Truth, Zekthara said simply. They carried the truth about your species, and they used it as a weapon against us. The alien shifted in his chair. It started on Rigel Prime. Your colony there had been under siege for 6 months. We had cut off all supplies, all communications. The humans should have been starving, desperate, ready to surrender. Instead, something strange began happening. Zekthara's claws drummed against the table. Our communication networks started receiving messages. Not military signals or calls for help. Stories. Your Commander Thompson and Captain Wells were broadcasting. Stories about humans across our entire fleet. Martinez leaned forward. What kind of stories? Stories about humans who had survived impossible things. A human child who had lived alone in a frozen wasteland for 2 years. A human woman who had walked across a desert for 30 days with no water. A human man who had been trapped underground for a week and dug himself out with his bare hands. The alien's voice grew quieter. At first, we thought it was propaganda. Lies meant to make us think humans were stronger than they were. But then we checked your records. The stories were true. All of them. Your species really had survived these impossible things. Martinez felt a chill. She was beginning to understand what Thompson and Wells had done. They had weaponized human history. But that was not the worst part, Zekthara continued. The worst part was the prisoner interviews. Your Captain Wells had somehow obtained recordings of human prisoners from our camps. But these prisoners were not what we expected. The alien's mandibles clicked nervously. Usually, prisoners beg for their lives. They tell us secrets to avoid pain. They break down and cry. This is how it works with every species we have conquered. But your human prisoners were different. Martinez waited. She could see that this memory was particularly painful for the alien. The human prisoners looked directly into our cameras and spoke calmly. They said they were not afraid to die. They said their deaths would only make other humans fight harder. They said that for every human we killed, 10 more would take their place. Zekthara's eyes seemed to glaze over. One prisoner was a young human female. She had been captured during the fighting on Kepler 7. She was maybe 20 years old, wounded, far from home. She should have been terrified. Instead, she smiled at the camera and said, "My name is Carol Baker. I am from Earth. I am not afraid of you. My people will remember me, and they will make you pay for what you have done." The alien shuddered. Captain Wells broadcast that message to every wreck ship in the fleet. Then she broadcast a message from Carol Baker's mother on Earth. The mother said she was proud of her daughter. She said she would rather have a dead hero than a living coward. Martinez felt tears in her eyes. She had heard about Carol Baker. The young woman had died in a Vrex prison camp, but her final message had become famous throughout human space. That was when our younger warriors began to have problems, Zekthara said. They started having nightmares. They began to hesitate before engaging human forces. Some even refused to fight at all. The alien looked directly at Martinez. You have to understand. The Vreks have always used fear as our primary weapon. We are bigger than most species. Stronger. We have natural weapons and armor. When other species see us, they run. This is how we have conquered the galaxy. Martinez nodded. But humans don't run. No, humans do not run. And worse, your Commander Thompson and Captain Wells made sure we knew exactly why you do not run. They broadcast the final messages of your soldiers. Last words from humans who are about to die. Sekthar's voice cracked. I remember one message. From a human soldier named Gary Mitchell. He was trapped in a bunker on Rigel Prime, surrounded by 50 Vrex warriors. He knew he was going to die. But instead of begging for mercy, he recorded a message for his son back on Earth. The alien was quiet for a moment. Mitchell said, Bobby, if you hear this, it means I didn't make it home. But I want you to know that I was not afraid. I was thinking about you and your mother when I died. I was thinking about the baseball games we used to play in the backyard. I was thinking about how proud I am to be your father. Martinez wiped her eyes. She had heard that message. It had been broadcast throughout human space as a tribute to the fallen. Then Mitchell said something else, Sekthara continued. He said, Bobby, I want you to know that these aliens are not as tough as they think. They are. They are afraid of us. They are afraid because we fight for something they do not understand. We fight for love. We fight for family. We fight for the right to play baseball in our own backyards. The aliens' compound eyes seem to lose focus. Captain Wells made sure that message reached every Vrex warrior in the fleet. She made sure we heard a human father telling his son not to be afraid of us. She made sure we knew that even dying humans were not afraid of us. Martinez felt sick. She was beginning to understand the psychological warfare that Thompson and Wells had waged. They had taken human courage and turned it into a weapon that cut deeper than any blade. What happened to your warriors? She asked. They began to break, Sekthara said simply. Young Vrex who had never known fear suddenly found themselves afraid. To sleep, they would wake up screaming, hearing the voices of dead humans. They would hesitate in battle, wondering if the human they were fighting had children at home. The aliens' antennae drooped. The High Command tried to stop the broadcasts. They tried to jam your signals, to block the messages. But your Captain Wells was clever. She found ways to get through every defense we built. She made sure every Vrex warrior heard the truth about your species. Martinez stared at the alien. What truth? Sekthara looked up at her with what might have been respect. That humans do not fight because you are strong. You fight because you love something more than you fear death. And that love makes you more dangerous than any weapon we have ever faced. The alien was quiet for a long moment. The psychological campaign reached its peak during the Battle of Proxima Station. Your forces were outnumbered 20-1, surrounded with no hope of escape. But instead of surrendering, they broadcast one final message. Martinez felt her heart racing. What did they say? They sang, Sekthara whispered. 200 human soldiers about to die, and they sang a song. Something about a flag and a land of the free. They sang it while our weapons were charging. They sang it while our ships moved into position. They sang it until the moment they died. The alien's voice was barely audible. That was when we truly understood. Your species had weaponized hope itself. You had turned your own mortality into something that made us afraid to live. Martinez sat in silence for several minutes. The stories Sekthara had told were almost too much to process. She had fought in the war, had seen humans die bravely, but she had never understood how their courage looked to the enemy. The alien, across from her, seemed smaller now, defeated not by weapons, but by something deeper. There's more, isn't there? She said finally. You haven't told me everything. Zekthara's antennae twitched once. Yes, there is more. The final truth. The reason why my people have withdrawn from your space and why they will never return. The alien's compound eyes fixed on Martinez. I was there for the last battle, the assault on your moon. It was supposed to be the final strike that would break human resistance forever. Martinez felt cold. The Battle of Luna had been the turning point of the war. Every human in the galaxy knew about it, but the details were still classified. Supreme War Leader Kethmer led the assault, Zekthara continued. He was the greatest military commander in Vrex history. He had never lost a battle in 400 years of warfare. He brought the entire First Fleet, 300 warships, and 50,000 of our best warriors. The alien paused and made that grinding sound again. Your moon was defended by maybe 3,000 humans. They had no fleet, no orbital defenses, no hope of reinforcement. Earth was 2 days away at best speed. The humans on Luna were completely alone. Martinez knew the basic facts. Colonel Matt Hayes had commanded the Lunar Defense Force. They had been massively outnumbered and outgunned. By every military calculation, they should have been wiped out in hours. Colonel Hayes was in command, Zekthara said. But he was different from your other commanders. He was not angry like the warriors from New Haven. He was not defiant like the soldiers from Titan Station. He was calm, completely calm. The alien's voice grew quieter. When Supreme War Leader Kethmer demanded surrender, Colonel Hayes sent back a simple message. He said, "We are Americans. We do not surrender. Come and take our moon if you can." Martinez felt a chill run down her spine. She knew that message. It had become famous throughout human space. The Supreme War Leader was confident. Zekthara continued. He had studied all our previous battles with humans. He knew about your psychological warfare, your willingness to die rather than surrender. He thought he was prepared for anything you could do. The alien's mandibles clicked slowly. He was wrong. Colonel Hayes and his soldiers were not like the humans we had fought before. They were not desperate. They were not afraid. They had accepted their fate completely. Martinez leaned forward. What do you mean? I mean they knew they were going to die, and they had made peace with it, Zekthara said. They had said goodbye to their families. They had written their final letters. They had chosen how they wanted to be remembered. And then they got to work. The alien's eyes seemed to dim. The battle began at dawn, your Earth time. Our landing craft hit the lunar surface in 50 different locations. We expected fierce resistance, desperate fighting, the kind of chaos we had seen in other battles. Instead, we found something that chilled us to our cores. Martinez waited. She could see that this memory was the hardest one for the alien to share. The humans were waiting for us, Zekthara said, not hiding in bunkers or behind walls. They were standing in the open, weapons ready, completely calm. They looked at us with no fear, no anger, no desperation. They looked at us like we were already dead. The alien's voice cracked. I was in the first wave that hit Sector 7. My unit of 50 warriors faced maybe 20 humans. We should have overwhelmed them easily. Instead, those 20 humans fought like machines. Perfect coordination. No wasted movement. No panic. They killed 30 of my brothers before we even reached their position. Martinez felt sick. What made them so effective? They had nothing left to lose, Zekthara said simply. Fear makes you hesitate. Hope makes you take unnecessary risks. Anger makes you careless. But the humans on Luna had moved beyond all of that. They had accepted death and turned it into their greatest weapon. The alien was quiet for a long moment. The battle lasted 18 hours. 18 hours of fighting the most dangerous enemy we had ever faced. Not because they were stronger or faster or better armed, but because they fought with the calm certainty of those who had already died. Martinez closed her eyes. She could imagine the scene. Human soldiers moving through the lunar landscape like ghosts, each one knowing they would never see home again, each one determined to make their death count. By the 10th hour, our warriors were breaking, Zekthara continued. They had never faced an enemy that showed no fear. Young Rex were throwing down their weapons and refusing to fight. Even veteran warriors were hesitating, confused by an enemy that seemed to welcome death. The aliens' antennae drooped. Supreme War Leader Kethmer ordered a full assault. Every warrior, every weapon, everything we had. He said we would crush the humans through sheer numbers. But even as he gave the order, I could see the doubt in his eyes. Martinez opened her eyes. What happened? We took the moon, Zekthara sighed. Every human defender died. Colonel Hayes was killed in the final assault, along with his entire command. But the cost was unbelievable. We lost 30,000 warriors, 2/3 of our invasion force, the cream of the Vrex military. The alien looked directly at Martinez. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was what happened after. As our survivors were securing the battlefield, we started finding things. Personal items left behind by your soldiers. Letters to their families. Photographs of their children. Video messages they had recorded before the battle. Martinez felt tears in her eyes. What did the messages say? They were not messages of despair or fear, Zekthara said. They were messages of love. Human fathers telling their children to be brave. Human mothers telling their sons and daughters to remember them with pride. Human soldiers telling their families that they died free. The alien's voice became a whisper. One message was from a young human woman named Lisa Grant. She was maybe 25 years old, about to die on a barren moon millions of miles from home. She recorded a message for her infant daughter back on Earth. Zekthara paused, his compound eyes reflecting the harsh lights. She said, Emma, when you grow up, they will tell you about this battle. They will tell you that your mother died, fighting monsters from space. But I want you to know the truth. I am not dying because I am brave. I am dying because I love you too much to let these creatures reach Earth. I am dying so you can grow up free. Martinez wiped her eyes. That message was broadcast throughout human space. It became one of the most famous speeches of the war. Yes, Zekthara said, and it was also broadcast throughout Vrex space. Your psychological warfare specialists made sure of that. They made sure every Vrex warrior heard a human mother explaining why she was willing to die for her child. The alien's whole body seemed to collapse. That was when the Supreme War Leader understood. That was when all of us understood. You humans do not fight like prey, because you are not prey. You do not fight like predators, because you are not predators. You fight like something else entirely. Martinez leaned forward. What do we fight like? You fight like parents protecting their children, Zekthara said. You fight like lovers protecting their beloved. You fight like people who have found something worth dying for. And that makes you the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The alien looked up at Martinez one final time. The Supreme War Leader sent word to the High Command that night. He said the war was over. He said that any species willing to turn love into a weapon of war could never be conquered. He said that fighting humans was like fighting the universe itself. Martinez stared at the alien. And your people listened? They had no choice, Zekthara said. The cost of defeating you was too high. We could have killed every human in the galaxy, but it would have destroyed us in the process. Your species had made victory impossible by making it cost more than defeat. The alien's antennae drooped completely. So we withdrew. The mighty Vrex Empire conquerors of the galaxy, retreated from a species that had been in space for less than 200 years. We told ourselves it was strategic. We told ourselves we would return when conditions were better. Martinez waited for him to continue. But the truth is simpler, Zekthara said. We are afraid. Not of your weapons or your ships or your soldiers. We are afraid of what you represent. A species that has learned to love something more than life itself. A species that has weaponized hope and turned mortality into victory. The alien looked directly at Martinez. Your kind calls it humanity. We call it terror, and we will never be the same. Martinez sat back in her chair. She finally understood why the war had ended so suddenly. Why the Vrex had withdrawn from human space without explanation. Why prisoners like Zekthara looked at humans with a mixture of respect and fear. One more thing, Zekthara said quietly. The High Command is considering a final option. Complete extermination of Earth and all human colonies. Not because we think we can win, but because we are too afraid to let your species exist. Martinez felt ice in her veins. Are they serious? They are terrified, Zekthara said. A species that can turn love into a weapon of war cannot be allowed to spread across the galaxy. They would rather destroy everything than face you again. The alien's compound eyes fixed on Martinez one last time. But